And if you go back 10 years in time from the time the accident happened, there has been a very, very steep rise in both demand and supply of cruising in the industry. And so what you see is an overall 84% rise in global supply and 160% supply in Mediterranean alone of the ships. And we look at the demand, there's 77% increase in demand and 136% demand increase in Europe. And that's a huge increase. That's a huge increase. And what happens when the supply and the demand increases? There's a shortage of people, right? There's a shortage of skilled people. So traditionally, the industry has always been about hierarchy and experience-based training and so on, but acute shortage of seafarers leads to some quick fixes like production line training, for example, try and squeeze people out as quickly as possible and promote them sooner, right? So we end up into a very interesting situation where traditionally the captain, it would take about 15 years to become a ship captain on board, but now because you are responding to an industry crisis, you cut short that time. So what happens is this is the bit to watch. So from a junior officer, so from a cadet to a third officer to a second officer to a chief officer and a captain, this is the traditional hierarchy on the ships. So you start to compress this time. So what you see is that people at this level, at the second officer level, at this level, which we call junior officers, the distance between junior officers, which is second officer, and the captain starts to increase. The rank experience that a captain holds can be 20, 30, 40 years, whereas a junior officer would still be maybe, very, very young and very inexperienced. So we have a very interesting dynamic here, and I see that in many industries now. Now that we started to look at this, it exists in healthcare, it exists in aviation, it exists in many industries, high-risk industries that require skilled people. So that's a very interesting the pattern that emerges from this accident. Traditionally, the industry has always been hierarchical by nature, but what you see is something like this now. So you have a captain who's surrounded by very, very inexperienced people, just coming out from school most of the times, right? And you can imagine now, how the dynamics of the team will fundamentally change from here, which is what we call skill gradient, when the difference of domain-specific knowledge between ranks becomes significantly large. So traditional hierarchy versus a new pattern, which I call expert versus novice. Yeah? This is the new culture that emerges. If you look at some of the accidents, for example, the Ethiopian airline incident, the co-pilot had 200 hours of experience, and that's it. Same with Malaysian Airlines. Same with many other accidents. You literally have a student sitting next to you. But of course, he or she is compliant, has a ticket, right? You imagine a cockpit that is designed based on the assumption that there will be two people with a certain level of competence. And you imagine what happens when one person is basically a student. What happens in a crisis and an emergency? The point I was trying to make was not so much about the gradient that exists, which is between the high-skilled workers and the not-so-high-skilled workers, which we call novices. The point I was trying to make was the tensions that emerge as a result of two different subcultures, whereby one operates as if they know everything and the other one doesn't have a clue of what's going on. And if we try to resolve that problem through the lenses of, let's say, psychological safety or training and retraining of people, what we are assuming is that the problem is with the individual person. But when we situate this as a problem of one or at least two or more subcultures operating in the space, we pay a lot more attention to relationships and how can we improve relationships. And if you look at it, what organizations are all about, it's all about people and relationships. If we address people and relationships, then most of it is taken care of.